A book exploring... Oh, by the way, I didn't even show you. What am I doing? There they are. So that's it for this video. That's it for this book tag. And until... Talking is hard. I don't know. It's just something about it. It is what it is, you guys. The Golden Girls is like the Godfather for gay people. Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome back to my channel, Reading in the Dark. This is going to be a book tag. I don't know if I gave you a good view of my shirt. And I wore it specifically for this video, so...
Eat dirt and die, trash.
I haven't done a book tag in a minute, and I found myself wondering. Also, I don't know, my hair's wet, I just got out of the shower. Why I couldn't have waited to do this video until later, I don't know. I just thought I would do it now. So, this is a book tag that I sort of thought I was gonna create. I'm sure I'm like the 10th person or the 100th person to think that. Someone should make a book tag about the Golden Girls. I'm gonna be so good at creating that tag. But the guy who did make the book tag, Josh from Josh's Bookish Voyage, which for some reason I have a hard time saying, said in his video too, he was like, I thought for sure there would be one. So thank you, Josh. So I'm gonna do the Golden Girls book tag. Now, in case you didn't know this about me, I have been obsessed with the Golden Girls for a long time. I mean, I watched it a lot. I think I even remember when it was actually still on the air. But I had an ex, I always liked the Golden Girls, but I had an ex a long time ago who really loved the Golden Girls, and it became like a tradition to just watch it every single night. The Golden Girls is like the Godfather for gay people. There are so many quotes and scenes and, you know, one-liners and whatnot that you can relate to life. And it becomes like a way of living, sort of. That's a little dramatic, but honestly, it's kind of true. You're probably hearing this, because I wrote down my answers, forgetting that I could just use my phone. But instead, I wrote this note on my phone and then printed it. I don't know. So, the Golden Girls book tag. There are 9 challenges. We call them challenges? I don't know. The first is Blanche. And this is not the page that has my answers on. A book exploring... Oh, by the way, I didn't even show you. What am I doing? There they are. I figured I would put them all in one place for this video. Normally, they're all over my shelves. These need to move over. Cute. Here's the deal. I think I showed this to people if you were around and watching the video when I put my bookshelves together. All 4 of these Funko Pops, which were a gift from my Secret Santa one year at work, he was so worried that I wasn't going to love them. I'm like, well, why? What's wrong with you? So they all live in different places on my shelves. Normally, Sophia lives in the historical fiction section down here, because she was there. Dorothy lives in the classics section, next to like Great Expectations and stuff, which is over there and you can't see. Blanche lives up here by the thrillers, because there's like, you know, like romantic suspenses included in that. That's just the kind of thing. She's obsessed with murder investigations and stuff on the show. Rose lives next to my Star Trek books. So, now that you've seen them. 1. Blanche. A book exploring sexuality and relationships. For this I chose Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams, which is a book I have not read yet, actually. But this is the story of a woman who goes through a breakup and then makes a lot of poor decisions and has a lot of hookup sex and deals with, you know, sex positivity and also the bad things that can happen in that situation. Number 2, Rose. A book that reminds you of where you grew up. And so for that, I chose Hell House by Richard... I'm kidding. I chose Haven, Kansas by Alethea Kontis, who, full disclosure, is a friend of mine. This is a young adult book about a sister and her younger brother. This October in Haven, Kansas, a boy plays a prank on his big sister. Suddenly, crows fill the skies, a female scarecrow plagues the town, and teenagers are dying left and right. Amidst the violence, strange things keep happening. Laura Townsend discovers a secret room behind the wall of her bedroom, in which a dark and foul book of shadows has been hiding for over a century. The book belonged to an ancestor who documented the spells and stories of the strange woman he loved, a woman the town later killed for practicing witchcraft. There are whispers on the wind, the death toll is rising, and Laura and her family seem to be the center of it all. They must call upon Laura's small knowledge of magic to help them. Will they be able to take the town back from the witch, and can they manage it without losing their lives in the process? This was so fun. This is a really fun read if you enjoy young adult and witchcraft and a really sweet lovely relationship between the sister and brother. I feel like people always write sisters and brothers, especially when they're young, as like hating each other, and they definitely like squabble, but they love each other in this book and are friends, and I loved that. So I love this book. And I grew up in Kansas, so there you go. Number 3, Dorothy, a book that made you feel smarter. For this, I chose The Persian Boy by Mary Renault. This is historical fiction. This is dense historical fiction. This is actually part of a trilogy. I have the other 2 books here. It tells the story of Alexander the Great. This is the second book in the series, and by far my favorite. It tells the story of Bogoas, who is a Persian boy his family was slaughtered, and he's sold into slavery. Basically, he's cut and made into a eunuch, and he learns to perform and to dance. Ends up being sold in the caravan with Alexander the Great while he's traversing the land, conquering everybody. And it tells of their close relationship and their love for one another. He's a true historical figure. Whether or not the 2 of them were lovers is not 100% clear, but it seems likely to many historians that they would have been. It made perfect sense and was very common for men in that time to be bisexual. He is a real historical figure, and the love that he has for Alexander and the way all of his men love him. This is the most vivid portrayal of an ancient time I have ever read. And I have not read anything by Madeline Miller yet. I plan to, but she is blurbed on here as saying, Mary Renault's portraits of the ancient world are fierce, complex, and eloquent, infused at every turn with her lifelong passion for the classics. Emma Donahue says, all my sense of the ancient world, its values, its style, the scent of its wars and passions comes from Mary Renault. So she was also an amazing woman. She was a lesbian. She moved to South Africa and lived there with her partner for many, many years before she died. Role model and an incredible writer. This is so beautifully written. I can't say enough about Mary Renault, and the history in these books goes over my head sometimes, and that's why I say it makes me feel smarter, because I learned a lot from reading it, and I need to read them again so that I will retain more of it. There's no question that Dorothy Zbornak would love these books and has probably read them. Number 4, Sophia. Picture it. A book featuring a character giving their life story. Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. I kind of forgot that is what happens in this story. This author is one of my favorite authors. She writes these intricately detailed, sardonic, dark, funny, self-effacing characters who talk very bluntly about things that people normally don't. And this is sort of like a mystery thriller. It's about a young woman who is stuck in a bad situation caring for her alcoholic father, who meets this extraordinary, beautiful, vivacious, fascinating woman at work and gets sort of carried off into like an awakening of sorts, and then things happen. This is a very popular book. I'm sure you've heard of it before, most likely, and if not, you need to read it, and you need to read Ottessa Moshfegh because everything she writes is basically gold. Number 5, Stanley. A book you love to hate. And for this, I have no choice but to say The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. Now, I know this book is extremely popular. It's being made into a movie, or it's been made into a movie starring Amy Adams that'll probably be out as soon as movies are being out again. And this book was, here's the deal. This is my review of this book, which I'll link to, is by far my most viewed video. And it's interesting because I don't hate this book. I liked this book. I really enjoyed reading this book, but I had some issues with it. There were some things about it that irked me. And because it was so popular, and because it bears such a strong resemblance plot-wise to the Hitchcock film Rear Window and the short story that inspired that film, I felt like airing those complaints a little bit. And I think, in retrospect, that the video review that I posted, while I'm proud of it, comes across a little bit like I hated the book, and I didn't hate the book. I think I gave it 3 stars because it was really entertaining and it was actually really well written, but I felt like some elements of it were unoriginal. That's all I'll say. But it's a good book and a lot of people love it, and I actually would recommend that you read it if you enjoy thrillers because it's a super well-paced thriller. Every chapter is very short. There's 100 chapters, so it's easy to get through, and it's fun, but I don't know. It's just something about it. It is what it is, you guys. Number 6. Cheesecake. Now, I have been known to make a mean cheesecake in my time, by the way. In addition to this classic cheesecake, I made a dark chocolate mint cheesecake a few months ago, I think, for the 4th of July. and no one liked it but me. But it was really good. They were all wrong, just so you know. So, Cheesecake, a book that you love to read over and over. So there are probably a lot of these, but the two that I chose are Presumed Guilty by Tess Gerritsen. Now this is an old romantic suspense novel by Tess Gerritsen that she put out long before the Rizzoli and Isles series was even born, before The Surgeon ever came out. And it just tells the story of a woman who is having an affair with a married man. She's been trying to break off the affair for a long time. He won't listen to her. She goes for a walk. She comes back and he's dead on her bed in her bedroom. Her family and the police and everybody assume that she's guilty because it seems that way, and she has to jump through a lot of hoops to convince anybody that she didn't do it, and she strikes up a relationship with, I think, the man's son, even though the family hates her, and it's just, you know what, it's a romantic suspense novel. It is just paced really well. It is such a fun read. It's nothing special. It's nothing groundbreaking. And you know what? It brings me so much joy. I think I've read it 3 times. There have been a couple of times where I was just like, you know what? I don't know what. I'm just going to read Presumed Guilty again. So that's really, really fun. The other one is A Separate Piece by John Knowles, and this is a much more serious literary classic. Tells the story, coming-of-age story, of 2 best friends in college, and it's tragic and sad and beautiful, and I had to read it for high school. And I remember walking around my house, aimlessly wandering through the house late at night, finishing the book, bumping into things, and I've been profoundly changed by that book. My whole life I love that book. And there are like sort of subtle homoerotic undertones as well in the book that have not gone unnoticed over the years, but it doesn't overtly tell a story of any gay relationship. They're best friends and there's a rivalry there, and it just does a really good job, sort of like Lord of the Flies, illustrating that sort of animal-like push and pull, affection / competition, deep-seated carnal thing that happens between 2 men. And it's beautiful. I love it so much. Number 7, Golden, a book exploring aging and the golden years, the other side of everything, by Lauren Doyle Owens. This is a thriller. This is about a series of murders that are taking place in a community, an aging neighborhood of all older people. And in fact, how old are they all? What does it say here? Bernard White is a widower who has lived in Seven Springs, Florida for decades. When one of his neighbors is murdered, Bernard emerges from his solitude to reconnect with his fellow octogenarians. Okay, so they're in their 80s. Forging literal lifelines as a second and then a third elderly woman is murdered. The originals, as they call themselves, realize that they are being targeted. Okay. This is so funny. I obviously got this from A Books. It's a used book. It has a price from the Strand bookstore, and it says, I've never gotten this before, it says, review copy not for sale. It looks like a finished copy to me. I actually read this on my Kindle first, but I loved it so much that I wanted to have it on my shelf. I've recommended this to a lot of people. This is a great thriller. This tells the life story of this man, Bernard, in flashbacks, and his regrets and his memories and the life that he lived in that house, and all of the many years long relationships of these people living in this neighborhood and all of the things that have gone on in the neighborhood over the years. You get to know all of them. You get to know him. It's so far beyond your typical thriller. There's so much depth in these characters, and it's heartbreaking and beautiful. It is far above and beyond the Call of Duty, I think, for a thriller. Couldn't recommend it enough. Number 8, Thank You for Being a Friend, a book featuring a strong friend group. The first one I thought of was Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I'm not going to tell you about that book. The other one that I think is a little bit more interesting is Prime Directive. This is a Star Trek novel by Judith and Garfield Reeves Stevens, and the reflection is just so much. This is amazing. This tells the story of what happens to the crew of the original Enterprise after Kirk breaks the Prime Directive, destroys the Enterprise because of the mistakes that he has made, and the crew is split up, and they're all kind of coming together to defend and build a case in defense of Kirk. So I've never read a Star Trek book that had the characters so down pat before, and their relationships to one another are really, really, really well represented if you know the original crew Star Trek really well. I have a lot of affection for them. I grew up, when I was young, my family, we all watched all the old Star Trek movies. I love those actors, and you can hear them saying these lines. These 2 authors know these characters, and I have to say, this is the most moving Star Trek book, maybe Star Trek story I've ever read. The way they come together to protect Kirk. There's a scene with one of the original crew members, not one of the major ones, with a younger officer who's all filled with hopes and dreams and optimism. It's beautiful. Again, above and beyond the Call of Duty, this is a beautiful book. It happens to be a Star Trek book, so this is a great friend group. Probably any Star Trek book would qualify for that, but this is the best Star Trek book I've ever read. 5 stars. And the last one says to tag a friend and stay golden. And I don't have any friends with booktube channels, so I'm gonna just say, anybody watching this video, consider yourself tagged. I'm linking to Josh's original tag video in my description below. And yeah, that's it for this tag. So until next time, stay golden, keep reading, and remember Rose's words of advice from that old Scandinavian saying, you can lead a herring to water, but you have to walk really fast or he'll die. Okay, bye.